Now this is a little video we did for, well, we did it for Chuck. This is part of his Hercules. It's a dirt bike. You can see there's basically two parts here. One is a gel-coated fiberglass part. The other one is it's a all-steel tank, and it's got a lot of little dents in it. Now, it was normally what I would do, and I don't get the final vote on this, Chuck does. I would have taken this tank and done probably you know, a couple of days of body work, filled in all little dings and dents and everything, but Chuck convinced me that these parts are going on to a dirt bike that's going to be highly used. It's not a show bike, and he basically just wanted to clean it up. It's a driver. It's a bike he uses all the time. He's got several of these, and so what he wanted was basically the quick and dirty paint job. Now it's easier said than done, and what had happened is Chuck had put on some self-etching primer, and when he was over here and delivered the parts, he had a great idea. He said, you know, Glenn has been wanting to get some practice with the spray gun, and of course, as anybody who's hung around the shop knows, I'm glad to help anybody that's willing to learn this trade, which I learned about 50 years ago. And well, it's funny, Glenn is the next candidate. Larry was one who was making amazing progress. The last couple of parts Larry made before he passed away, I could have pawned them off as my own. And so, well, anyway, it turns out that this started out to be kind of a funny day. And I thought, you know, before Glenn gets here, I may as well sand out and reprime this a little bit. I didn't want to start doing Bondo and red lead, and it would have been a couple of days of body work to straighten this tank out. But I figured I'd do as much as I possibly could while I was waiting for Glenn to get here. And he was bringing his daughter, who always seems to enjoy, I always give her a sewing lesson while she's here, or I let her paint something, or we throw her in the pond with the fish, or I'm not sure what we do, but she always enjoys the visit here anyway. And so what I wanted to explain here, and for people, and I guess some of this information is basically 101. The prime that was on here was very rough. Now, had we painted it with the blue would have been rough. So by sanding this all out, wet sanding it, we saved a little bit of work later on. Even though and this part here was really rough around the edges. But I thought it's a good part, and it was Chuck's idea. It was a good part for Glenn to practice on, and he's certainly gotten better and better with each part he's painted, something we're all striving for. Now, one of the reasons we want to get better and better is over the winter, Glenn and I have pretty much matching Kawasaki track bikes to paint. We want to paint them with the Camaro green, which our friend Chris is, she says she doesn't like the color, so Chris, you should reconsider that opinion. We're going to paint your helmet green. Anyway, Chris really doesn't know how involved these projects get, but I have a feeling she will. So here's the deal. I sanded this all down, wore my fingers to the nub, realized there was just a ton of body work to do on this. See, now what happens, as soon as you start doing body work, you pick up the little flaws, and then you see the bigger ones, and then from that point you see the even bigger ones. And this one here, it had cracks in it, it had some red lead that somebody else had even already put on there. But I had about an hour while I was waiting for, you know, waiting for Glenn and his daughter to get here. So I figured, I looked around, saw I'm down my last can of self-etching primer, so the next job people are going to have to buy their own primer for here. Anyway, especially these white gel coat parts. If you don't sand them well, if you just think you're going to wipe them down with acetone and paint them, that paint is almost guaranteed going to peel off. So I did spend quite a bit of time on this, and what's always a good idea is if you have the time, is to use a can of self-etching primer, put it on a reasonable amount, let it dry, usually about an hour in this temperature, and then wet sand it down, which is exactly what I did with this one. And while I was waiting for that to dry, I sanded the tank some more. You can see the spots where the prime's getting thin. The unfortunate thing is and I don't know, see, this has some kind of a rack or something up here, or I don't know what. So going around these screws gets to be a little labor intensive around the gas cap. But again, I had about an hour to do this, so I figured I'd get everything ready so when Glenn was getting here, and what happened is in the course of doing this, it started looking like it was going to rain any minute. So I got it all cleaned up, all back masked off. And you can see what happens when you block sand out a part that needs body work. This really should have been cleaned up, this cleaned up, and then several coats of red lead and primer, and we could have made this really nice. But again, it's Chuck's decision not to do that. And when we did his OSA, we did an awful lot of repair work, but this one was a lot less. And we're not looking for a show quality finish. We'd like a nice, presentable bike that's probably going to, within 30 seconds of starting the engine, be in a mud puddle. So, and I hope Chuck will give me some pictures of the finished bike, or bring it over here so I can shoot some pictures. But I did get time, the way the day played out. I got another coat of primer on this, which pretty much used up my self-etching primer. And the problem is with all this stuff, it's got to dry. You don't want to prime it and 30 seconds later. It needs about a good half an hour. If it were warmer out, it really wasn't as warm as I thought it was. And it started looking like it was going to rain. So I told Glenn, as soon as Glenn and his daughter got here, I said, let's get cooking. You know, I want to get this going down the road here a little bit. Now, even though normally these gel coat parts on the back are all rough fiberglass, we just gave it just the slightest hint of a sanding. And then I wanted Glenn, and this is always my technique, is paint the back part first. Whether you're painting a model airplane, a guitar, a boat, or whatever. And I painted them all. You want to start with the back. That gets you a little familiar with the paint. See if you have enough thinner in it. See if it's too thin. And you can set the gun up, set the pressure up. I like to spray with the purple guns, about 30 pounds. And I wanted Glenn to just get a feel for painting here, and there's no, in my opinion, there's no substitute for just painting things. You know, using up paint that on any part. Now, the good part about this, it's a dirt bike, so in the worst of all worlds, if we get a giant run or we get a big part that doesn't look so good, we'll just sand it down and do it over. And again, Glenn is pretty intense. He's a pretty intense guy, like Larry and like, well, several other people that have worked here. Dave Midgley for one, Jeff Stifel for another. People that have really taken to wanting to learn the skill of painting. Now, for people that don't know, my career in painting, developing the line of Brodak dope paint products is one thing, but that's only part of it, because I went back into the 60s when I started painting, and it was just a thing of, you bought the material and you bought an old compressor and you just practiced painting stuff. We painted car wheels, we painted cars, we painted trailers, we painted, oh my God, we restored a wood boat and probably used 50 gallons of shellac doing it. But little by little, you build up the skills necessary. Now, it's my feeling that when we get to do these 2-track bikes over the winter, and we're going to start by doing some test parts. Glenn has already ordered the Camaro green, that real nice green like Ken Tyser's Camaro is. And so I'm hoping that as we do that project, it's going to be a fun project. And again, I'm inviting anybody that has a similar project and wants to learn the skills. We do these seminars at my house from time to time. You can bring your paint, your products, and your stuff down, and I guarantee you before you leave, they'll look perfect. And in this case, had we done a lot more body work, this part would have looked a lot better. But it certainly looks good enough. And it might even look good enough that Chuck is happy with it. I don't know. We're going to find out. Now, number 2, whenever you're painting a gas tank, and this is a nice little, like a Harley Sportster tank, it's always a good idea to paint the whole bottom first. Then you can prop it up on some spray cans. In my case, I don't do that. I hold it with my left hand because I've been doing it for so long that I have a good technique for doing in model airplane parts and smaller parts and motorcycle parts, that over the years, unless the part is too fatiguing to hold, I like to hold it in my left hand. So I wanted Glenn to practice this little technique, which he did very successfully. Got that all painted up. And a lot of these bikes, if you buy an old Yamaha, you'll notice they didn't paint under the tank. Some old Hondas, you look under the tank and all they did was put a lick and a promise of primer on there. And that's why a lot of the tanks rust up pretty bad. But when we're going to do a restoration or an improvement, I'd like to get them as nice as I can. Now, it just turns out this was a color that Chuck had picked out, and it covered real well. So this was even a better chance for, if we were doing a yellow or a white, well, it would have been a lot more chance to get it wrong. But because of this color being a good coverage color, and it was actually good, it was perfect. It went on nice. You just couldn't have a better practice part. So I know it benefited Chuck, and in fact he'll have a reasonably nice dirt bike. Glenn has some practice under his belt, and we're not going to do any of the final nitpicking of the clear and sanding with 2000 grit and buffing, because the part's basically going to go on a dirt bike. But we did want to make it that when Chuck passes some guy in a fast corner, the guy will look over and go, "Wow, nice paint job, Chuck." And then Chuck, of course, will take full credit for doing it himself. So, which a lot of my friends do. So, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag here, guys. But a lot of the bikes you see painted, I've painted them. A lot of them. Anyway, and model planes too. Anyway, and just to mention it, Paul has put out on the same website you get to the motorcycles a lot of model airplane videos, and a lot of the videos that are out there deal with painting. And they go back 31 years. There's 31 years of video out there, probably 100 videos. I made over 1,100 in my lifetime, and Paul's been putting them out there. I think he's got over 100, but maybe of some interest to people, I don't know. And if it isn't going to cost you a salami sandwich either. Anyway, this is my work table is now Chuck Blue. What are we going to call this? Hercules Blue. The next thing was that we pre-mixed the clear. And we wanted to get the clear on this part so it'd give the tank a little extra time to dry while we were putting the decals on. And so what Chuck did, he brought over an extra Hercules tank, and these are not exactly the same. Maybe they are the same, but this one's all dented in. And I'm glad he didn't want me to do this one. But he brought over the decals, and this was just to place the decals. And I know Glenn has done this, I've done it, Luciano's done it. Everybody puts these stickers on, but what we wanted to do is once Glenn got them on, we wanted to clear over it. And so placing these decals, stickers, whatever. And by the way, this is Glenn's daughter Leah, and she's here helping us. She was holding the hairdryer for a while, and she's in management though. You notice she's in nice clean clothes. Everybody else looks like we've fell out of a dumpster. But anyway, he's got all his stickers placed pretty close to how they should be. And we kind of did this all by eye. It was good having the extra tank. And just as a note, if you were going to restore this tank, this would have to be all stripped. Where it's rusted, this has to go down to bare metal. If you paint over rust, guaranteed that job is not going to last that long. And then bubbles are going to appear. So we're not concerned with the green tank yet, but we wanted to get we were hoping, now this is where, and on a day here in the shop, it can all work in your favor or it can all go south. And what happened this day, it all went south. So what happened is by the time we got the decals placed, everything pressed down, we had the clear mat ready to shoot, and what happened is it started raining. So we really couldn't do much more to clear. We got one coat on that little number plate thing in the front. We got the paint work done, and then I just left it here because I knew, and this is a thing I've learned from many years, if it looks like it's going to rain, it'll wait until you're actually spraying the clear and you've got almost all the clear on, and then it'll rain. So if it looks like it's going to rain, it's best left for another day. So what happened, and of course, as I looked outside, it was going to rain any minute. And sure enough, it started raining. So that pretty much put an end to this day. And we just figured we did get some clear on this part. It dried up, but we didn't get any on the tank. And Glenn had some other things to do this day. He's working on therapy for his finger. He has a bad finger that's healing up real nice, and hopefully we're going to ride this weekend again. And what I did is I got up early the next morning, and it was pouring rain. So I basically just waited till it stopped raining. There was no more chance of rain. Mixed up another batch of clear. It didn't seem like it was worth it for Glenn to drive all the way down here. And again, since, again, the usage of his parts, I think Chuck will be real happy with this. It looks pretty much like what it should look like. The color is real nice. We've probably got enough paint left over to do another tank if Chuck scratches this up or drives into a tree or something with it, which can happen with dirt bikes. But anyway, when I think back about doing Chuck's OSA project, the parts were really rough. There was some really rough. We had a leaky tank to deal with, a fender that broke in 2 pieces. And if you're interested in such things, you can look back through I think I got about 100 videos out there, and one of them, or 2 or 3 of them, is the OSA project. The OSA project was pretty labor intensive. Now again, because I've been doing this for a lot of years, and as Ray Straub found out, now I did a bike for his, actually it was my old bike, the black Yamaha, which some of it I think is out there. And he's been to 2 bike shows already. They won both of them. So, and bike shows and trophies don't really make me too happy. I like to go to cruise night with my old bike. I like to, just go to Bear Mountain and hang out and show it off, mingle with the other guys that are so inclined, share the passion for these old motorcycles. But to be honest, bike shows aren't my thing, and the other part of this is now I need to have Chuck come over at some point in time, take a look at this, and if he's thinking it's good enough for his dirt bike, well, that'll be fine with me. Now, while I got this little video going here, I just want to remind all my friends that we still have this bike that's in the background here, and it's a GS 1100E that we're hoping somebody is gonna, we're looking for one of 3 things. First thing would be to find a crankshaft that hasn't been used for drag racing. Number 2, find a whole engine for under $500. Number 3, find a whole bike for under $500. Preferably one that's been in a wreck. The idea of buying a bike that's been in a wreck, especially a front end collision, because we don't need the body work, we don't need the frame, we don't need the wheels, and I know the engine was running when he hit the tree. So if anybody does happen to know somebody with a GS 1100, the one I'm looking for is an 82 or an 83 only, but other crankshafts might interchange, and I don't know that. Anyway, and we'll see you when we see Chuck, either later in the week or next week. We'll definitely get some feedback and see how he likes this. And I know he's really into the dirt bike thing. I'm not sure if he has 20 or 30 dirt bikes, and it doesn't matter. But I'm sure this one will be one he'll enjoy riding. And I hope, I've said it before, anybody that's seriously interested in learning the skills of painting and you want to spend some time here, I'll do everything I can to make you get the most out of your entertaining afternoon at Wendy's shop.